All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. In a moment, we will turn it over to our guest speaker. But before we go there, I have just a couple of quick announcements. First thing, the Shades of Pastel National Juried Show is up and running at Glenview Mansion. It will be up until Thanksgiving. This was a national juried show, big prize money, and the work is absolutely breathtaking. Please try to get over to see it. Their opening, which is open to the public, is this Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30. But I think most of you know that during the week, when it's a little quieter, it's a wonderful time to actually visit and get comfortable with taking as long as you want to see things. But please see it. You'll be glad you did. Next announcement, for all of you that are renewing your membership, thank you. And for those that have renewed their membership, or obviously if you're brand new to RAL, your link and password for this membership year has been sent out. And that link and password will allow you to enter shows, including the upcoming Winter Juried Members Show, which leads to the last announcement I'm going to make before I introduce Steve, and that is please enter our Winter Members Juried Art Show. We will accept entries until November 1st. Read the show call, please. We tweak it every time based on questions we have or any new things. A lot of it's the same stuff, but a reminder never hurts, and there's always a couple of new things. So read the show call. 2 pieces can be entered by member for consideration. The judge makes the final call as to what will actually be in. Our judge is Gonzalo Ruiz Navarro. He's judged for us before, he's presented to us before, but it's been a while, and he's looking forward to it. And by the way, did I mention read the show call? I think I did. Yeah, read the show call. Now I'd like to introduce Steve Loya. He's not new to our group. He's supported us in the past. He was our judge. He picked out awards for our Sunflower Show back in the summer of 22. His late wife, Chris, and they were quite a team, actually presented to our group and also judged our winter show back in 2019. Funny story, I met Steve and Chris when I was gallery sitting over at Artists and Makers, and that was back in 2018. It was an absolute downpour. I said I would sit in the gallery. I did. I said I know it's going to be a waste of time. I brought my paint so I could be constructive. Nobody came in. I was about to wrap up, and then Chris and Steve walked in, and I have never met a more artistic, dynamic, friendly group as those two. And I got to know them instantly, and I'm so glad I did. I was in some shows in Leesburg that they curated at a place called the Trist Gallery. Unfortunately, the gallery didn't survive the pandemic, but it was fun going over there. Steve has been focused on his Splotch Monsters recently, but he does abstract, he does representational, he does it all. But the Splotch Monsters are something he's going to talk about today, and they're really fun. He actually had a show over in Rockville at the Artists and Makers. I believe he sold out, or nearly did. I guess that means, Steve, your prices were too low. But anyway, he was in great demand. He is internationally collected, by the way. Steve is originally from Pittsburgh. He studied art education at Edinburgh University. That's Edinburgh University of PA, not of Scotland. He teaches in Loudoun County, and I understand that he now, during the summer breaks from public schools where he teaches, he has some adult classes that he teaches. And all I can say is that the folks, the artists, the students over on that side of the Potomac River are very lucky to have Steve presenting to them. And we're lucky to have Steve presenting.
Well,
couple of housekeeping things already, please keep yourself on mute. He welcomes questions. When he's going to show some things from a screen, he's also willing to do a demonstration for us. And when he does the demonstration, please pen him. I think you all know how to do that on Zoom. There's 3 little dots. When you click on the dots, one of the options is to pen. And when you have your cursor or when you've highlighted him, so pen him, and that will allow him to be front and center when he's demonstrating. When he's sharing a screen, it's not quite so important. So with all that, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And I just want to say, it was such a pleasure meeting you that day. I still remember Chris and I exploring the gallery, and I think it was the park lawn portion of Artists and Makers, if I'm not mistaken. And
or Wilkins Avenue. It's one or the other.
Yeah, one of them. And Chris and I were walking around, and we saw you in there. We were really intrigued by just your concentration, and we were kind of hesitant, but there seemed to be such a friendly aura or vibe. We thought, let's just talk to him. It can't hurt, right? And you're just so warm and inviting and friendly. And I just remember telling Chris, I'm like, give him your card. And when you and Lisa started exhibiting at the gallery, it was just, it just made us so happy to see your work come in, consistently every month. So I just want to put that out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate this opportunity. So hi, thank you for everyone who showed up. My name is Steve Loya, and I am a local artist, although, as Patrick said, I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And today we are going to focus on something called Splotch Monsters. And they usually start out kind of like this. So they start out as kind of random paint splotches. And it's something I've been doing for probably about a decade and a half. I just entered my 25th year of teaching art. And at the time, I'd say about 15 years ago, I was trying to find new avenues of creativity. And, when you teach art, you give a lot of yourself to your students, right? And yet, as an artist, and I'm a lifelong artist, it's something that you want to do as well. So I was trying to find new ways of creating. And Splotch Monsters was one of those avenues. So what I'm going to do a little demo with some watercolors a little bit later. But what I'm going to do first is share some of my work here. So let me just do this. And I do apologize if I'm a little rusty at the screen sharing here. So let's see. And again, thank you all for tuning in. Here we go. Share screen. And let me see. So Patrick, I was pretty good at this earlier.
Yes, you were.
What's that?
Yes, you were.
And I'm just trying to find the screen sharing function here.
They move stuff around, I think.
Hey, they do. But we were practicing a little bit, and I was really, here we go. So let's try it now. I was really good at it. Here we go. Share it. Can you guys see that?
Go.
Yes.
Hey, all right.
Working.
Wonderful. So what you guys are looking at now is my website, and it's actually connected to my Instagram, which I love because you can actually, because I think on Instagram you can't bring it up online. So can you all see that image with the little octopus and the Splotch Monster?
Yes.
So I'm gonna I'll go through some of these if you guys don't mind. So this is actually one that Chris and I worked on, and when the pandemic hit, People were at home. People were just kind of, people understandably were nervous, and some people were bored. And one of Chris's ideas was, she's like, hey, how about we do a collaboration where you make your splotch monsters. I could do little stories, and I'll add my flowers, because she was a watercolor florist. So this was one from a series that we did, called Stop and Smell the Flowers. And every day what we did, in the spring of 2020, and then also in 2021, was we'd do one a day, one paint splotch monster. We'd pass the paper back and forth. She would add her florals. I would add some kind of animal, and just kind of make them interact. And then she would write a quick little story for each one. So this one was very much inspired by the movie My Octopus Teacher. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but if you haven't, you will never look at octopuses or octopi, is that how you say it, the same again. It's just an amazing story about a friendship between an octopus, and a man who would go swimming with it every day for a year. So anyhow, so let's just look at some more work. So another thing I do is splotch dragons, or paint splotch dragons. And this was one I did almost exactly a year ago, and I decided to repost it, with the big harvest moon. I don't know if anyone saw it out there, but this one's very much inspired by the seasons. It's inspired by the autumn colors and by the full moon. And if you look closely, there's even a little monarch butterfly. So this is very much autumn inspired. So in addition to the more, I guess, splotchy splotch monsters, I do these more Asian style dragons that I really love.
The those dragons are a big deal in Asian art.
Yeah, I've always loved them as a kid, and I could probably trace my love back to Sesame Street. um, there was some animated feature on, I think, Chinese dragons, and I just remember it, like the impression it made on me as a child. So many things. Um, in addition to that, was just like going to the Carnegie Museum of Art in Pittsburgh. My parents would take me there, and we'd, look at the big dinosaur skeletons in the dinosaur hall. And I just would come home and try to draw those. I would imagine, so what would these look at like if they came alive, right? Um, and so I think that really had an influence on my drawing. But and still to this day. Here's a little book I put out recently. In fact, I'm not going to press that because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. But I actually put out a little book called A Splotch Monsters Guide to Northern Virginia Wildlife. Let's see. Let's get a little crazy here. I'm going to press that, and maybe it will show. Oh, here we go. Okay. So
It's
this summer I
working.
did. Is it working? Okay. I did a
Yeah.
little artist residency through the Loudoun County Public Library System. It was a 3-month residency. And I decided to focus on native Northern Virginia wildlife. And it was part of, I wanted to make them in some way interact with splotch monsters and make it just kind of a fun way for people to learn about local animals and wildlife, while also just seeing something kind of different and something unusual. So it's an actual field guide to these animals. And I did 40 of them all together over the summer. But it's like a very, I guess, non-traditional field guide. And, I'm really proud of it. I just got it published, and it was great because it arrived on my birthday about a week ago. It arrived on my doorstep, the first copy. So that's actually available through Blurb Books. But that's something I love to do, is have them interact with other things. Here's another autumn splotch monster. So, these all start out unplanned. I honestly have no idea what they're going to look like. I'll make a paint splotch on a piece of paper. In this case, this is I think a 7x5 inch. No, this is a 4x6 inch piece of paper. So postcard size, let it dry for a while. I'll look at it from different angles and then start drawing. So none of it is really thought of ahead of time. It's really kind of, maybe spontaneous, stream of conscious. This was from, actually, a couple weeks ago, I was in Shenandoah National Park. I got accepted to do a workshop there as part of their Art in the Park program. And what a blast. I mean, right there in nature, under a big tent. And it was actually raining that morning and foggy. And I was the first person that Saturday morning. And I'm thinking 9 a.m., no one's going to show up, right? Or I'm sorry, 10 a.m. And as soon as 10 a.m. hit, a bunch of cars pulled up and we had people from all ages come and we had so much fun. But, it's something that I love to do, just work with adults. But lately I've been posting a lot of autumn Splotch Monsters. So this one was a little story that I had written about a young Splotch monster who panicked when it started losing its leaves. It's a little 1-year-old one. It's its first fall, and it's wondering why the leaves that are growing out of its head are falling to the ground. But the whole story is about not to worry, that life has cycles and that those leaves will come back eventually in the springtime, only to fall again. And one of the cool things about my residency was I finally embraced some of the technology. And it's amazing how our public library systems have things like different printers, like a 3D printer. In this case, this was called sublimation printing. So I would upload an image to a computer and the librarians would help me out. They would print out a little piece of paper that you would tape to what's called a sublimation friendly mug. So you could buy them on Amazon. You could also purchase them at the library, and you tape it. You tape it to the mug. You put it in this little machine, and 4 minutes later, you got this beautiful looking object that you can use, but also look at with your artwork on it. So it's amazing how far the libraries have come. And I also participate in something called the Small Press Expo. This was my second year in Bethesda, Maryland. It's the biggest of its kind. Every September, people from all over America, even the world, come over, and it's super crowded for 2 days. And a lot of vendors are there who are selling graphic novels, comic book style art, more cartoon related, in all levels of sophistication. I mean, you could buy little miniature printed zines, as they call it, for $1, all the way to like $25, $30 beautiful soft and hardbound books. And it's just a wonderful way to meet a lot of people, but it can be a little overwhelming at times. So moving on here. And I'm trying to see, let me just see if you guys, oh, here we go. So this is an image where I utilize some technology. This is an older image I call Sea Shaman. I like to create vague stories, but, clearly a lot of my work is influenced by nature in the natural world. And this one is influenced by deep sea creatures, especially the bioluminescent type critters that live deep in the ocean. But in this case, they're all Splotch Monsters. But this originally was made on traditional watercolor paper. So the original image was a large piece of white, I think maybe 140-pound watercolor paper. The image itself took a long time to do. And I got it professionally scanned. Then I played around a little bit in Photoshop and kind of reversed it. And then I actually drew on top of it using something called jelly roll pens, which are great. And so you see those little dots and whatnot, creating that really neat effect. But let's see if we could scroll through some. And one thing about these, I don't like to spoon feed too much of an explanation. I might give it a title, but I always think part of the fun is letting the viewer kind of formulate their own stories, Okay, let's see here, moving on. And Patrick, so I'm looking at this. I can't tell, are you in this image too? I see you, but I'm not sure if you're in it as well.
It depends on what setting they have, whether they have a gallery side. What we see mostly of is what you're sharing on the screen, which is great.
Oh, okay. Oh, wonderful. And I'll do a couple more things here. This was kind of fun. I don't know if anyone got out to the National Gallery, the West Wing, and I think unfortunately the show is over. But I thought this was wonderful. They had this amazing exhibit of, I think, 17th and 18th century naturalist artists, mostly women, called Little Beasts. And I mean, the work was extraordinary. I mean, just the attention to detail, um, with insects and all kinds of critters. And I thought, how cool was this? I just wrapped up my artist residency, and that following weekend I went to go see this show. I think I found out about it online, and I took some pictures, but they did such a beautiful job too. But it's really interesting to see just how creative these artists got. And this is pre-internet, right? Pre-Google, pre-microfiche even. So these people are working from, both live and dead specimens. And I feel like there's a real level of dedication. This was a great painting, and it was just filled with little hidden insects and critters. There's one in particular I love, though. Let's see it come. Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of the artist, but she, I guess that's her name that she did with different creatures, and I found this to be really cool because I actually do that with my Splotch Monsters. So it was, I felt a bit of a kinship with her, but the level of detail, just incredible.
And these artists were from way past, right? These aren't
way. Yeah, we're talking, 16th, 17th century. These are. I mean, so they were very like scientific, yet there was a very artful way that they presented their work in these drawings and paintings. That worked on both an illustrative level, but also a fine arts level. And there's a gorgeous documentary. I didn't even realize they had a big room where you could watch movies, and a gorgeous documentary, beautifully choreographed, amazing music, illustrating the whole process of scanning and photographing and preserving these works, like these sketchbooks, these journals, and these paintings. I just, all that behind the scenes stuff that we really don't see. It was really fascinating, but I wish it was still going on. It was a real treat. And this is something I'm really proud of. During my artist residency, I worked on something called a Splotch Dragon triptych. And this was something I worked on a little bit every day. I'd add a different critter, or I'd add details. And it really started out with a bunch of paint splotches. I put out 3 pieces of paper, big pieces, I think 20 by 30 inch pieces of paper. And I did a light pencil sketch from right to left, kind of in a wavy motion. And then I just started laying down paint splotches. I let it dry. And again, this was very much kind of like riding the bicycle as you're putting it together. And, one day I thought, well, maybe I'll add a little brown bat. Maybe today I'll add some, monarch butterflies. Initially, I was going to focus more on plants and local flowers and whatnot. And I just learned that that's not my strongest point. I think my interest is more in animals. So I kind of pivoted and shifted my focus more to wildlife. And it was just a real joy trying to make these animals kind of interact with, the dragon. So, and a lot of these were actually taken from photographs I had taken on hikes in the area. That's a Cooper's hawk. Some of these took me maybe 7-8 hours to complete. It was just really neat learning about the different animals. I think my favorite was the great blue heron. Um, I have a real affinity for them. Just seeing them flying. Sometimes in the morning, just above my cars, it's like seeing something from prehistoric times.
I think it's so cool with you mixing the abstract in the splotch part with the uber realistic, in the heron and the butterflies and stuff
Thank you.
like that. I just think it's so cool that they're all mixed in like that.
Yeah, thank you. It really it's that balance, right, of just having the urge to work in a looser, kind of more abstract fashion, but there's also this part of me that really is very, very detail oriented, almost perfectionist to a fault. And I don't know how many times I would erase things and kind of resketch it and redraw it and color over it until I felt it looked right. And I got a lot of friends' opinions, and with varying criticisms. And I had one friend who thought perhaps it wouldn't work, halfway through with the splotch dragon and the more realistic. So I did try to tie things together and add more realistic touches to the dragon itself. And I think aesthetically, like adding the stripes, the green stripes, they're kind of solid. Adding the eyes, the teeth, I think it kind of tie things in a little bit more. The goldenrod was a real challenge to render. Using pencil, Pigmamicron pen, and markers. But yeah, I really do go back and forth.
Steve, are you drawing these animals on your paper where the watercolor is, like on the actual paper?
Yeah, yeah. So I
Because
don't, I don't know if you.
aren't
Oh,
you
go ahead.
risking a lot when the boo-boos happen and you
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing is, and that's a is a great question. That's why I really welcome questions. I don't know. Can you see the image right now?
yes, uh-huh.
Yeah. So what I do, I will make a whole bunch of paint splotches ahead of time. I might sit down for 3 hours and make 30 splotches and just let them dry. And then I'll decide, like I had a whole notebook filled with different, mammals, reptiles, insects from native northern Virginia. And it's really kind of thinking, okay, if I choose a beaver, how would that look on this paint splotch? And I looked at different ones. I thought, well, would it fit, if I turn it this way? So I really had to decide um, how that would work. But the watercolor was dry. And then I would sketch it out in pencil first. And then later start adding color and adding details. So let's see if, and I'm not sure how successful this one was. I think this is one of my least successful ones. This was actually inspired by a recent hike where I saw some trees that no sign of beavers, but you could tell that they were there. And I thought that was really neat. So I wanted to render that.
I'm
And I
sorry.
like,
So a lot of your watercolor is very transparent,
mhm.
right? Is the
Yes.
is the beaver like acrylic, or are you still in watercolor?
Oh, so the beaver, I actually didn't use watercolor. I use some pens. I sketch it out first in pencil, then go over it with Pigmamicron pen, and then I would just color it with like these special like alcohol ink markers.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I'll go over it again with the Pigmamicron pen,
Okay.
and also use some Jelly Roll pen. So it's a process. It's a real
All
kind
right.
of mixed media
Thank you.
process.
I just had to know. They're beautiful.
Oh,
Thank
thank you. No, that was a great question too. I appreciate. Yeah, I
And
really
I
love.
was wondering along the same lines about the eyes and the teeth because they're
Yeah,
opaque white in many
yeah.
cases.
Oh, yeah. I could go back to that. Yeah, I used so the white I used is I call it my secret weapon, and I'll show it to you guys when I take this off. It's the white Jelly Roll pens, and I don't know what I would do without them. They're
Okay.
kind of like little paint pens, You have to let them dry after you apply them, to the paper. But anywhere where you see like dots or the whites of the eyes or teeth or any kind of like shine or sheen on the animals or on the splotch monsters, you can attribute that to the jelly roll pens. It's an
Thank you.
absolute game changer. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without them, honestly. Um, this was fun. But I learned a lot this summer about Northern Virginia wildlife. Some of these critters I actually have seen in person. This was like inspired by a hike on the W&OD Trail just only a day before, right? And a picture I had taken. So I think any way to get people, both kids and adults, interested in nature is fine by me, because I think, we live in a world that kind of forgets that we share this planet with other inhabitants, and they play a really crucial role. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a pangolin. This is my favorite animal, and this was part of a series of larger pieces I called Endangered Kingdom. And this was fun, just having the pangolin interact with different splotch monsters. And, when I learned about the pangolin, it just amazed me that there's this ancient beast from prehistoric times still on this earth. And sadly, it is critically endangered. There are still, people who believe that, their scales have, I guess, medical qualities, when really all they're made of is the same thing that our fingernails are made of, right? Their only defense is rolling up into a ball and just not moving for a while. But their scales are so hard that even a lion can't penetrate them. So you'll see a lion, like in the African plains, trying to figure this thing out. Like, how do I eat this thing? And it's just finally giving up, but just an amazing creature. And there's actually a documentary currently on Netflix. I don't know about you guys, but I love animal documentaries. But this one is just amazing. The music, the videography, I mean, all of it. And there's a lot of human activity in it too. So this was actually inspired by one of Chris's photographs. We would explore a little park in Leesburg called Idley Park. And she took this gorgeous photograph of a butterfly. And I thought I'd use it in an image. So in a way, a lot of the work I do is not only a homage. I'm just, dedicated to animals, but also to people. This was fun. I don't know how many of you have ever done 3D printing, but when I was at the makerspace at the library this summer, I finally broke down and thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use the technology because it's here. Why not? I'll give it a shot. And so I made a little 3D printed splotch monster. I named Brambleton after the Brambleton Library that I was working at. And it was really neat because I talked to the people working there and I said, hey, so how do we go about doing this? And I was told, well, unfortunately, the software probably can't read a splotch monster because it really doesn't know what it is, right? It can make an educated guess, but unlike, say, a house or a dog or some kind of animal, a car, it really can't tell what a splotch monster is. So what you have to do is almost make your own 3D replica. So I had used something called Model Magic, which is kind of like a kid's clay. And I molded like a little 3-inch tall replica of one of my splotch monsters as best as I could. I picked one that was a little simpler. And then they actually scanned it with it's really cool. I guess you'll get a chance to see it here. But they scan it with this really neat technology. You put it on like a little bed, and this camera connected to a computer will scan it from every angle. And then it feeds that information into the software, and then it prints it out. And it's just really extraordinary. So I thought I'll take it a step further, take it on a little nature trail. This is actually Runnymede Park in Herndon. It's a great little, easy little hike. And I thought I'd take Brambleton on a little photo journey. So this is kind of like a photo essay of Brambleton exploring Runnymede Park, almost kind of like an alien visiting Earth and just being fascinated by the plant life and the nature and just wanting to explore. Um, photography is something I was really into in high school. I was actually in charge of the darkroom for my junior year. And so this is really neat, just kind of going back and um, exploring photography in a creative way. But you can see he's fascinated by the mushroom and the water, the sun dapples, and they actually recommended this color scheme. They said it had a very kind of cosmic look. So I'm like, okay, this works. And that's how tiny he was. And let's see, this is him being printed. So that's the 3D scanner printing out Brambleton at the library. And then,
excuse me, I've lost the image. Everybody's smiling and I can't see anything.
okay.
What happened?
Can you guys see me, Patrick?
Yeah, I see.
Why don't you go out and then come back in?
Leave?
Yeah, leave and then come back in.
Okay.
That should fix things.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, I didn't
Can
have
you guys see me okay, Sarah?
Yeah, it's been fine. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, but I haven't lost your image. It's still
Okay,
here.
good. Okay. Can you
May I
see?
compliment you one time, if you don't mind?
Oh, yeah.
I think they're beautiful, but Steve, they're both whimsical and sophisticated.
Thank you.
That's a trick. So that's a hat trick. So I think they're amazing. Anyway, while she's signing back in, I just wanted to tell you that.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I guess it takes an artist to notice that, right? I remember one time, I was it was one of the first art fairs I had done. And I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or an insult, but I remember this dad walking by and looking at my work. And it was still very much in its early stages. And this one that I brought up as a prime example is very simple. And he looked at it and he said, oh, he's like, my kid can do that, And the artist in me, I guess, thinking like how Picasso, spoke about taking 40 years to work work like a kid. I try to frame it that way, although I don't think that's how he meant it. And sometimes you just have to brush things off, And I'm thinking the guy probably wasn't an artist. So, hearing it from you, Sarah, I appreciate it.
I can see the these are high level pieces of art. I really think they're extraordinary. So I'm really happy to get to see your work.
Thank you. Well, interesting. My turtle. Oh, I know, because that's why he's there. I actually used my pet turtle, an Eastern painted turtle, as inspiration for one of them. I think he was pretty happy about that. But I do a lot of sketching from nature. A little later, I'll show you guys some images from my sketchbook. One thing I tell my students, if you don't work from observation, you're not going to have a lot of fuel for your imagination. So, I'm a firm believer in that observation feeds imagination. If you're not looking at the world, if you're not trying, whether it's taking pictures, drawing, or just walking around and looking closely, because think about it, we're so busy most of the time. We pass things up all the time that are beautiful and to us insignificant, but I really try to keep the sketchbook and try to work in it regularly and use that as a way of as a means of working in different avenues. So thank you. But yeah, just more images from Oh, this is from, I'm trying to think of what park. I think is Sky Meadow State Park. I had gone with some friends, one of whom was a former park ranger at Sky Meadows. And him and his wife, we went on a wonderful hike out there a couple springs ago. And it just so happened that these little tiny creatures, salamander creatures called red efts, EFT, a red eft, they were everywhere. And at first you're walking and you don't see them. And then you look down and you would see one. And next thing you know, you see another and another. And even my friend Tim, who was the former park ranger, he said, this is unusual. He's like, they might be migrating or something. But they appeared to be coming from out of the ground, like little holes out of the ground. And it was just a really magical experience. So it was really fun just, incorporating that into one of the 40 Splotch monsters, but also putting it on the big Splotch dragon. But I find, at least as I get older, it's the simple things that really fascinate me. But I think, Sarah, to answer your question, here's an example of just doing a whole bunch of paint splotches in one sitting. So in 3 hours, I'd sit down and just make a bunch. And I think the challenge is trying to make them all different. I find a lot of times my hand will want to go in a certain direction. So I really have to discipline myself to try to keep it different and keep it fresh with each and every one and not repeat the same thing over and over again. I've got a good friend who's a prominent abstract artist in the DC area. And he's like, Steve, you should just do those. He really liked just seeing them as paint splotches and in a row, but I thought that was kind of a neat interpretation. This was fun. So like I said, I really love teaching adults over the summer. As part of my residency, I got to teach primarily adults. It was billed as teens through adults, and I had people of all ages. This so happens to be Adam, my dental hygienist. I know he doesn't mind me talking about him, but he brought his family, and as you can see, he even put, I think it says tooth. He has a very very out there, wonderful sense of humor. But it is really neat to see him show up. And on that day, we focus on something I call splotch words or splotch lettering, where they would think of a word that makes them happy or use their name. And then they would kind of loosely splotch it on the paper. And, it's just really fun to see a lot of people who would come in who said, I haven't drawn in like 20 years, or, I haven't touched, watercolor since I was in middle school. And so they just had so much fun, I think. And it's always a compliment when people don't want to leave your workshop, when they just want to hang out, even though you have to go and, another group of people are coming in for another presentation. And, I think it's really neat to see that pride in people's faces, like, yeah, I did that, I made that, and they get to take something home. Some of them just crack me up too. So yeah, but I did 3 different kinds of workshops over the summer that all were loosely based on Splotch Monsters. And the Splotch Monster alphabet. Let's see here. Oh, and here's just a little glimpse of just working from my sketch pad again. Great Blue Heron. I did on both the dragon image and on the smaller image. But of course, I did a lot of pre-sketches originally. Some actually, these are based on a little movie I made of one near a pond, and I had just screenshot different stills from the movie. I think it was trying to swallow a frog. The poor thing, at one point, you can see it like, I don't know if you've ever seen a heron swallowing its prey, but the thing was trying to get something big down, and it was struggling. I think it finally got it down after about 5 minutes, but I thought that was really interesting. So
Did
I'm
you have to
going to
do a
do a
Heimlich
little bit
maneuver on the bird?
Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Heimlich maneuver on the bird.
What's that?
Heimlich. You must have done a Heimlich
Oh,
maneuver on that bird.
yeah. Yeah. You almost want to intervene. You're like, should I help that thing out? You know, it's got a pretty sharp beak. Apparently, those beaks are like spears. So I don't know if I would. Yeah, I did see something like that, though, now that you say it. And I think it was a great blue heron where a man found one caught. I don't know. It was in some kind of like plastic fence or something, or fencing that was in the water. And the poor thing's neck was caught. And this guy clearly, you know, he had experience, you know, on the water. I guess he wasn't even intimidated, but he was holding it. I mean, this bird looked really strong, but he cut this thing off of its neck and then set it free. But I mean, you're definitely taking a risk, right? You're working with a wild animal there, but it was really something noble to witness. So. And monarch butterflies. And again, just working from sketches, you know, working from nature. This was something that was actually on my front porch. And I'll come home sometimes from work and they're literally just sitting there sunning themselves. They'll hardly move. You know, this is I think it's called a 7-lined skink. And they have these beautiful bluish tails. And they're actually very common in Northern Virginia and Maryland. So it was really fun using that in the series as well. And that was just a little promo shot. And this is just an ad for one of the workshops. And this is just some. So this is, you know, I would get about 30, 35 people show up to these things. And it's good that I was prepared. I think having, you know, experience teaching, that actually helped a lot. But again, just teaching all ages, especially adults, it's amazing how much adults need some kind of creative outlet. And they're all just so thankful, you know, and just so happy to have the opportunity. But and some would say, "Oh, I can't draw," and then they learn. They're like, "Oh, I'm actually not too bad at it," you know. Anyhow, so Patrick, is it okay if I do a little bit of a demo? So if I
Yeah, I'd love to see the demo. So be
okay.
sure to you know, turn the share off so we can see you.
Yeah.
And folks in the audience, please pin Steve so that he'll be predominant on your screen. And for you all that anybody have a question about pinning? Okay, everybody's got it. Okay, good.
So Patrick, did I unshare? I can't tell if I did or not. I can't. I think you muted.
I did. We can see you. It's fine.
Oh, good. So you guys got me pinned. Okay, awesome. So, all right, guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a little painting just to show you how I make my paint splotches. So here I just got a big watercolor pad. So I guess we could call this Bob Ross style. It's been a while since I've taught this way. Being an elementary school teacher, I actually taught like this for almost a year, which was interesting. But so, you know, I just got some water, you know, some basic brushes. The watercolor that I like to use, I discovered online. I actually found them on Amazon of all places. It's a Japanese brand. I can't unfortunately tell you the name or pronounce it, but if you just like go on Amazon and type Japanese watercolors, you'll see these right away. And I love them. They're super vivid. They're super bright. A lot of them have really good color fast qualities. But honestly, even if you use Crayola kids watercolors, those work just as fine as well. So let me just get set up here. So sorry about that. So you guys can see okay over here? All right, so anyhow, so I try not to think too much about what I'm going to paint. You know, one thing I tell my younger students that can be a little bit of a difficult concept is, you know, try to not to make anything in particular. Just make a splotch, right? So now I don't use the wet on wet technique. I know that's kind of, you know, a very common watercolor technique. It's not something I do in particular. And really, your choice of color is up to you. I find it interesting to use colors that are complementary. I might let them merge a little, but really it's almost like trying to paint clouds, right? You know, think about as a child looking up at the sky and seeing the different cloud formations and trying to find animals. And this is a little bit like that, I guess. And I like to use the entire length of my bristles.
So, Steve, you don't have anything specific in mind. You're just putting colors down.
Yeah, right now I don't have anything specific in mind at all. I'm just putting colors down exactly. Let's see, and just kind of seeing what happens here. It's really kind of experimental at this point, and it's later when I actually decide what this is going to be, right? I'm going to try something here. Please don't laugh if it doesn't work. I might actually get some of it on my face, but let's see. So you could use a straw. You could just kind of blow on it. I don't know if you guys could see that little streak, but that's how I get nice little streaks. Now, one thing I like to do is I think it's kind of fun to have compositions where they have a possibility of interacting. So just kind of creating dynamic compositions with Splotch Monsters. So sometimes what I'll do is, you know, I'll do one paint splotch, and then not far from it, I might do maybe a smaller one nearby, maybe up here. And again, I'm not really thinking too much about what's going to happen. And I think a lot of it is just a way to be creative. In a way, there's something kind of meditative about doing something like this. I've never been very good at meditating, so maybe this is my form of meditation. I think a lot of people who paint or draw can relate in many ways. But again, it's not something I'm planning. Now, some people are probably wondering how I do the splotch dragons. So those are something that I do a little more thinking of. So I usually start with like a number 2 pencil, and I might sketch out real loosely kind of a winding shape, right? And that's not always something you have to do. And then I'll just kind of apply the paint very loosely. And again, this is something that's a little more planned.
Steve, do you normally work flat? And you're just doing this for the demo?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be honest with you. I had purchased a new, what do you call, camera phone holder.
Like an overhead, yeah.
But for some reason, and I remember waiting last minute to put the thing together, and it's just not working.
Well,
So,
I mean, you're not dripping, you're not having a lot of issues, but I was
yeah,
curious.
I mean, I'm trying to be careful here.
Okay.
But you know, I always say embrace happy accidents if it is starting to drip and whatnot.
Right.
You know, how can you make it work, right? What's the thing that Tim Gunn would always say? Make it work on Project Runway. That's one of my favorite sayings. Just make it work, right? And I think, you know, the nature of this work, you could probably get away with mistakes and not even tell anyone. I don't know, you know. But what was it, Bob Ross, who always liked those happy little accidents? I don't know. Um, but that's a good question. Yeah, normally I work flat, so that's a great question. But for the sake of this, I am just kind of working on an easel.
Steve, you've mentioned Bob Ross a couple of times today. I just heard there was an article about an auction of some of his art.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of
I
those
heard about
happy accidents are selling for $1 million.
You know, it is amazing. And, you know, he was such an interesting guy because he really never considered himself much of an artist. He considered himself more of a teacher, and he never had any type of exhibit at all. But I was very lucky, you know, Chris working at Trist, she actually, we had access to the one and only exhibit of Bob Ross's work at the Franklin Park Art Center. Gosh, I think it happened right before COVID hit. But the woman who runs the art center is good friends with, I guess, a relative of his who has a lot of his work. And they managed to put this show together. I mean, it was pretty amazing because they had his little quotes next to, you know, his painting. So you could just imagine him talking, you know, just in his Bob Ross voice next to each painting. But seeing them in person, I mean, they were quite impressive. You know, I never knew what to think about him until I actually went to this exhibit. And I mean, I really think he was a legit artist, you know, seeing this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's wonderful, you know, using his work to help others. I mean, so you said, are they really going for like in the millions?
Hundreds of thousands to over $1 million. Yeah. I mean, I'm not every single one, but I mean,
Yes,
what they mentioned on the article.
that is impressive. Wow. And there were people, I think, who traveled from New York City for that show in Purcellville. People from Japan. I mean, people came from, I had never seen the place so crowded before, you know. But, well, that's impressive. That's impressive. But yeah, so these are a couple different approaches. What I'm going to do now, I think I'm going to do a little drawing on, well, let me just stop. Does anyone have any questions or comments before I continue at all? No? Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how I do a little bit of drawing. So you saw how I apply the paint to create splotch monsters and even a splotch dragon. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take this off and I'm just going to tape up one of my paint splotches to show you how I actually add colors and add details. So let me just take this off real quick here. All right, there we go. Can you guys see that okay? Somewhat?
It looks good.
Good, good. So here's a paint splotch, and actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you guys vote. Let's do it. I love to let people have a say. So I'm going to show you 4 different angles, and I'll let you all decide. All 4 of you decide which angle you want me to make a paint splotch monster out of. So don't vote yet, but we'll do it by a show of hands. So I'll let you guys look. So this will be angle number 1. All right. Just to show you that I have no preconceived ideas. This is angle number 2. Here's 3. And 4. You guys want to see them one more time before you vote?
I know which one I want.
So you can only vote once.
I'm ready.
So if you want angle, so here's angle number 1. Anyone want 1? No? Okay. 0 for angle 1. Any for angle 2?
Wait a minute,
Okay, we got 1 vote for angle 2.
Yeah. I liked 1, by the way. I didn't know.
Okay, so 1 for 1, 1 for 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Any for 3?
I'm a 3.
We have 2 for 3. So I mean, I guess it's safe to say 3 wins. Awesome. And that's actually, I don't know if you saw where the tape mark was. I actually had it the other way. So I'm glad you guys are challenging me with angle number 3. So this is cool. This is going to be fun. So let me put that tape back on. And put that back up there so you can see. There we go. So some of the materials I use, so my favorites are Pigma Micron pens. I don't know if you've ever used these, but they're a different kind. You know, you could buy them at Michael's. That's usually where I get them. Try to get the discount if you can. You could go online because these are pricey, but they're amazing because they have different thicknesses. I don't know if you could see that. This is a 0.3. So this would be like kind of a medium thickness, pretty fine tips, but you can get some really nice details. For the sake of you guys being able to see, an 08 is what I'm going to use. And if you guys, can you give me 1 minute? I'm going to get my plug because my battery is dying pretty fast, even though I charge it. So if you guys want to get a drink, use the bathroom. I'll be back. All right. I'll be back in 1 minute. I promise. I'm just going to get my charger. So
1 minute break, everybody.
These are pretty fun. I gotta be honest.
I think they're great.
Yeah, it's like I won't say it's like a Rorschach test, but it's the idea that you can decide what this is so intuitively after you've kind of just roughly experimented. That's amazing.
You know, he says that he doesn't have a plan, but I'm looking at that splotch right now, and I see a mouth, and I see where an eye is going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe he's maybe subconsciously there's a little planning going on after all.
Well, he's got experience. He
right.
wins.
Muscle memory.
But yeah. But what animal would you pair that with? I don't know.
What I think is amazing is the detail of his realistic sketches in comparison to the abstract. It's such a marriage.
Thank you. I did bring my sketchbook if you guys want to.
I'd love to. Love to see it.
Yeah, just kind of, a lot of random stuff. Dog.
Oh my gosh.
Geese.
Wow.
You'll find a lot of trees. I find the nice thing about trees, they're very forgiving. You can mess up and no one really knows, right? This is from a hike. This one here. This is someone's house, sketching their house plant. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a tree here.
Are these are done in pen and ink or pencil?
Yeah, some were in micron pens, different types of markers. There's a Pigma micron pen. This is called a graphic. I'll show it to you here. These have a little bit of a thicker, almost brush-like quality to them, which I love. So some of the thicker ones, like this dog and this tree in particular, yeah, we're done using that. But some were done using a number 2 pencil. Let's see here. This was done. Have you ever used those China markers? They're great. I think they're not meant for this kind of thing, but they're a little cleaner than charcoal.
You said
so you could get those nice
China, like
yeah, they're called China markers. I guess because you could write on China.
Oh, you can write on it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact but I use them for lots of drawing. And these are standard Pigma Micron pens. I think this was Rock Creek Park. And this was at a local farm. So, yeah, you know, again, like I tell my students, you know, you should really try to draw from observation. You know, I'm sure you're all familiar with Pokemon. It's still popular after how many years now? And I tell my students, you know, where do you guys think the artists who created those characters, where do you think they got their ideas from, right? And if you look at those characters, they're clearly influenced by realistic animals. I mean, they look kind of whimsical, but if you look closer, they're very much influenced by, say, cats or, you know, mice or lizards or snakes or insects or turtles. But anyhow, so here we go. So this is the one we voted on. And one of the things I try to do is I like to start with like a face, right? So the great thing about monsters is you can't mess up, you know, so this is really good for people who say, well, I'm not an artist. I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. You know, what do I do if it doesn't look like something? I'm like, well, first of all, no one's going to know, right? Even if it's not how you envision it, nobody's going to know because it's imaginary. It's not real. So, you know, looking at this, you could look at this and see maybe this could be a mouth and maybe an eye, or maybe this is where the head could be, right? So I'm actually gonna go for here and start out with kind of an eye shape. We'll make it large. All right. Okay. Now there could be a snout here and a mouth. I like looking how when things kind of dip in, that could be an opportunity for some kind of wrinkle or a mouth, right? Now here's the neat thing. You can extend things with your markers. So I like to use these. These are called Cali Art markers. Again, found them on Amazon. They have a thick tip and a thin tip, and they come in so many different colors. I use these to add color to all my animals in my Splotch Monster series. So if I want to extend that snout, I could get any color really. I'll try the shade of yellow. And let's just bring that out a bit. And we'll color over that. That's pretty close to the original shape. And we'll bring out that a bit too. Okay. Now I'll show you how those white jelly roll pens work. I love these things. And this is what I call, I think I was telling Patrick, this is my secret weapon because you could get teeth, you could get the whites of the eyes, you can make claws with these if you want. So I'm just gonna, and it kind of works like paint almost. Although sometimes you do have to activate them on a separate piece of paper. So I'm gonna do that. And this one's being stubborn. And that's why I have multiple. Let's see. And I probably should just be letting that dry a little bit. So
Yeah, that's what I was does it bleed if you do
Yeah.
a little bit? Okay.
So let's add some more details here. So maybe we could add some arms coming out here, right? And mine tend to look a lot like dinosaurs or dragons. I remember my art teacher in middle school telling me I need to stop drawing so many dragons. So maybe this is part of me. As much as I love to draw all kinds of things, maybe this is just still part of me rebelling. I don't know. But he did have a good point. I remember he said, Steve, actually my high school art teacher said, Steve, he's like, do you have a basement in your parents' house? I'm like, yeah, we have a basement. He's like, so what I want you to do is I want you to go down in your basement. I want you to look up at the ceiling. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, are there pipes that are exposed? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want you to spend the week drawing those.
Oh wow.
And his name was Dean Marshall, and I loved him. He was just a very inspirational guy, but he was always pushing me, right? And I'm thinking, why? That is the most boring thing in the world. Why would I want to? So I remember giving it a shot. And the first day, just thinking, high school kid, I'm like, this is stupid. Why would anyone do this? And I'm drawing them, and the more I'm looking at them, the more fascinating I'm finding these mundane pipes, that I normally would pass all the time to go, get my bike under. And here I am, like, wanting to draw more. And it really taught me a lesson that, like, everything you look at is interesting. Beauty is everywhere, right? Anything can be subject matter. Anything is sculptural. If you just stop and look at it, right? So I thought that was a really neat lesson. I think that has stuck with me,
This one makes me think it's like a juvenile reptile, and it's wearing a hat.
A hat? Okay.
And
Well,
maybe even a pink scarf, and it's going to school.
I love it. So, and this is where I love collaborating. So, okay, so then you're going to help me out here if you don't mind. Do you mind if I get you on board? So, what kind of hat do you think you should wear?
He's got a hat on. That's the hat. It's his little hat that his mother made him wear. I'm sure he doesn't need to wear that hat.
Okay, so we could add some details to the hat and make it look more hat-like. I love that idea. That it's like a little
you could kind of have a little ribbing so it looks like a banded knit hat.
Okay, I love that. Well, I'm just going to give it a little.
Am I the only one that saw hat?
I saw
I
that
see
hat
it
too.
now. Well, now that you say that, I totally see it.
Like
so I love that. I wasn't sure because it's funny. I'll have my students help me with these, and they might suggest like a top hat or a cowboy hat or something. Then we might go with like a cowboy theme or something.
I think it's a crocheted hat.
Uh-huh.
Everybody was trying out their crocheting and they didn't quite fit.
I like this.
Yeah, you can see the little stitches.
Okay. So Mama Monster crocheted a hat and sent it to school, and it's getting colder, fall's on the way, right? In fact, I do crossing guard duty at my school every morning. I have been for the past 15 years. And today was the first day I actually wore like a knit hat because I am follically challenged. So I wear hats a lot. But yeah, so I like that. So maybe I could add a little detail. Well, maybe I'll just use a black marker. Let's see if I could show a little bit of a hat. Maybe I might mess up. I don't know. Or not, but we could add a little bit of texture, right? And I love this crocheted. So we'll just add some little weave texture. I tried crochet, by the way. Chris was an avid crocheter. I think that's how you say it, and knitter. I just did not have the patience. Did any of you crochet or knit at all? No.
I've
I
tried
mean,
it. I was like,
you tried?
yeah, I was like all thumbs. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I just, it was not easy at all. Let's see, there's a little bit of pink. Maybe, this is probably a different shade of pink, but we could add, when I was a kid, we'd have those hats that had like the little, they call them fossil hats, right? Does that work?
Yeah.
No. Thank you. That's a great idea, Sarah. Thank you. Now, I'm going to make this a little more real. I'm going to overlap the legs a little, right? Let's have the arm overlap a little. When I have my students do sculptures, they have a tendency to want to put the legs on the belly, right? And I tell them, really, they're actually overlapping the side of the body. So when you put them on, you want to have a little bit of overlap, right? Now, something else I do, I'll add some wrinkles. I'll make the shape of the hand on the other side. So we can imagine here, we could also imagine, the leg over here. Now, this is just me. This is something I've been doing. I think this is kind of like part of my aesthetic or approach, but I'll do that and then I'll completely color it in, because there's not much light happening there, right? There's a real absence of sunlight or just light in general. So it's just almost completely dark. Now, I think a more advanced approach would just be to add the right color, right? That could take a little longer. But if you're working a little quicker, or if you just have like a certain aesthetic preference, I kind of like this style of working. I would just kind of draw, just imagining this leg overlapping the other. Let's add a little muscle tone. That would just color all that in, right? Now, I also use patterns and spots as a means of not just adding more visual interest, but also just kind of defining the creature more. So for instance, let's get we'll get this red, right? This very obvious red. So I might define the edges of the arms more with this dark red and just kind of go along the side, maybe make them smaller, make them get a little smaller as you go up. And again, this is where like observation with nature comes in, looking at animals, with different patterns, different textures, stripes, spots, dots.
Is that the beginning of a backpack on his back?
It could be. Oh, let's try that out. We can make it into a backpack. Do you think I should do that?
Up to you.
Now that you said it, I really can't unsee it. So I'm.
What's he going to carry his candy in?
Okay, you guys, I think we need to collaborate on a story, you guys. Next book, right? Okay, let's see if I can make it into a backpack. This is exciting. What color can I get? This might look pretty silly, it might be a complete fail, but right, it's worth trying. So let's have it's amazing. The kids carry so much. They have the biggest backpacks these days. One of my students is a wee little girl, second grader. She must be like 3 feet tall. I think her backpack is bigger than her. And it's the most hilarious thing, just seeing her walk around with. I'm thinking, like, what are you carrying? It's like a little turtle,
Does she have a wheel on it so it was on the ground?
Yeah. Okay, so we have make a backpack here, right? Yeah, the kids have really cool backpacks these days. And I think they actually do have wheels, a lot of them now. So here we go, and I'll just color. It could be 2 colors. There we go. Backpacking Splotch Monster. What do you think?
That's great.
What's your name? What? I'm sorry. What's your name? It just says iPad Junes. Is that
It's
June.
June. Her name's June.
June podcast.
Thank you, June.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have,
Sign
thanks
out.
to you, we have a backpacking. It's the first official backpacking Splotch Monster. So, and you know what? We can make it going on a hike. So how about we have a little bit of time, couple minutes. Let's make, I normally keep a white background. Like if you look at a lot of my Splotch Monsters, the backgrounds are commonly, let's see here. They're normally like white. I kind of like that Eric Carle aesthetic, but you know, I think it's also fun to add some kind of background, right? So let's make, you know, I was recently in Shenandoah National Park, so we can make this one hiking. Maybe it's on a big cliff. I could color that in later. Right, and then in the distance, we could have the Blue Ridge Mountains in the distance, right? And again, I could add some color later. And let's add, maybe a storm is on the way. So we got some stormy clouds. All right. Or it could just be a big cloudy sky. And let's get a happy little sun up there. There we go. And you know, I could work on this for another hour or two, but I think maybe we'll just stop it at that. What do you think?
So
We'll get a little closer to you.
typically how that's great. Typically, how long do you spend on one of these?
You know, so I'd say a couple of hours at least. Some might take longer. This is a quick one. This is a fast one. But normally I work a lot more meticulously and a lot slower with the drawing and the details.
And how are they all a success, or like are you batting 500 or?
That's a great question. No, I mean I'm lucky if I get maybe you know, normally most of them I end up liking. I mean, I think I show you the beaver one. I thought that wasn't one of my favorites, but like out of the 40 in that book, I would say maybe 30 were I really liked, you know, and maybe 10, they probably in hindsight, I could have done better, you know? Yeah, June. Yes, June.
Oh, so what realistic creature would you put on this one? A butterfly on his neck or something?
We can have a little butterfly friend. Let's do that. Let's do that.
I mean,
now.
I'm just wondering whether you usually do that.
You know, it's become a more and more common recurring thing for me. So I think, you know, why not, right?
I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's matter.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think part of the fun too is storytelling. I think we all love to tell stories, even as adults. I would do these demos. I have a friend who has a wonderful little bookstore called Books and Other Found Things in Leesburg, and he'd have me by, and I would do these little Splotch Monster demos, and I'd have full-grown adults come in, and they would work on some too as well, and they would just end up going into complete like child mode, and they would start making little voices and like creating characters and stories as they're drawing. And to me, I mean, I think that's a success, when you get full-grown adults to act like kids. But because I think we all need that, right? Life can be pretty heavy and pretty serious. So sometimes we just have to have fun, right? So,
Well, we've had someone had to leave, but she wanted to tell you how much she loved your creativity.
oh,
We all agree. We really
well,
enjoyed
thank you. Thank you.
moment of this evening of fun. And
Yeah.
It's been
Also,
great. Steve,
Sarah
what
has a
kind of
question.
other things do you paint? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, so I have my Splotch Monsters, but if you go on, I have another website. It's just steveloya.com.
Okay.
And there you can see I do it's kind of a combination of like the drawings in the sketchbook with like say loose watercolor washes in the background. But then I also do more like just straight up abstract painting that is suggestive of music. I did a whole series where I collaborated with some local, more like avant-garde musicians and try to interpret their music, and then vice versa. They would send me stuff they composed, and I would try to interpret it through colors and lines and whatnot. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. I did try landscapes. I got really inspired by an amazing David Hockney documentary called The Bigger Picture. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. He decides to return to Yorkshire and explore his roots again. And he's going full on plein air with 4x4 size canvases, him and his assistant in this little car, in all weather. And of course, he's like swearing like a sailor as the rain and the wind, and he's trying to paint. But it was just so inspiring to see him painting these landscapes. But he's clearly a master, and I tried something like that about 10 years ago to mixed results. So
What was the name of it?
it's called I think A Bigger Picture.
Okay.
Yeah, he gets tired of LA. He's in his 70s, I think, at this point. It came out about 10 years ago. He ended up getting a giant exhibit at, I think, the Tate Gallery, like a massive retrospective. But and he's just a character, as well. So but
Well, thank you so much for your time.
thank
Briefly,
you.
For
can I
sharing
ask a
your
question?
fun creativity.
Thank you guys.
And we hope to see more of you in the future. Splotch Monsters, abstract, you name it. I'm sure that they're all wonderful. And again,
I need to get out to the mansion too.
Yes,
see
please
one of the
do.
shows,
Let us
so.
know when you're coming.
Yeah.
Also, Sarah had the question about where can people get your Splotch Monsters books?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the more affordable versions would be on Amazon.
Okay.
You just type in, I think, so the one on Amazon is called Stop and Smell the Flowers. If you just type in Steve Loya,
Look them up.
Stop and Smell it. In fact, I'll show you. I also have, this is the Blurb books version. Now, Blurb, I will say, are pricey. They are a lot more expensive. If you want something more collectible, higher quality, because I really do try to put out stuff through them that I know will last, like that really kind of preserves the images and just really.
Okay.
But Blurb, that's the name of the website.
Yeah, BLURB.
Okay.
Yeah, they're based in San Francisco. They've been I think they're one of the first online self-publishing platforms. They're super high quality. They just celebrate, I think, their 20th year. They're Blurb books, but you could buy them there. I have 5 different ones there. But you could also buy Stop and Smell the Flowers on Amazon. They do a great job, but you're not going to get the thicker paper, the brighter images, but you will get more for your buck at Amazon. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Before we sign off, can I just say what a treat. This was what I needed for sure this whole week. This has been such a treat. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, this is what I needed too, and I didn't even know it. So thank you,
Well,
Patrick and Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you again, and thanks for joining in. I know there are going to be many people that will watch the recording, and they'll probably watch it more than once.
Good.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and that's what